Mark Watson, thanks very much for your time. President Trump, diagnosed with COVID, recovered, back in his comfort zone now at a rally in Florida. He'll really want to try and build a bit of momentum via that.
Yeah, it's extraordinary how quickly he's gone back to his preferred methodology. I know there's a lot of discussion around whether there'd be another presidential debate. To be honest, this is where the president is most comfortable, in front of the crowds, at a rally, trying to gee up that energy that we've talked about before that he really feeds on and he needs. At this stage, I don't see there will be another presidential debate, so each side now will find their own way back into their own groove on the campaign, and I think the president won't be too disappointed to find himself there.
And you've got this situation where the COVID diagnosis itself becomes a point of analysis. Would it benefit him if he recovers as he has, or is it a negative because it puts it back on the area, a weakness, a perceived weakness of his?
Yeah, and look, the Democrats are definitely targeting Donald Trump on his response to COVID. And even though he's trying to portray it as, look, I'm a very strong person, I'm a strong leader, I think the reality is that the Democrats will say, you're strong because the medical care that you receive as president is nothing like the medical care that mainstream America receives. So while he may wish that it could be a positive for him, I think the Democrats can also play a pretty strong hand in saying this is why we need the Affordable Care Act, this is why we need Americans having access to better medical treatment.
So much of it is going to be dependent on the turnout, isn't it? When you look at the polling, we are all a bit cautious after 2016, given the polls were largely wrong. The question is, on this occasion, are they more accurate? And, you know, the turnout issue is so crucial, as always, in the United States.
Yeah, look, I think that what we're seeing is a real firming up of the numbers. They really do seem to be hardening either right on or beyond the margin of error in the polls, and that's significant. Look, there's still a likelihood that some states will be very, very close. I mean, it'd be amazing if they weren't. We've seen Florida in recent years go right down to the wire. In the three critical states, Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin, that Trump won last time, I think there's only like 80,000 votes between those three states that decided the outcome of the election. So you wouldn't rule out that it tightens as we get closer to the polls, but right now you can only play the game that's in front of you, and that is telling us, the polls are telling us that Biden's lead is firming.
And you wouldn't rule out any, you know, as it's called, a black swan event. We have also seen major events, including the nomination of Coney Barrett, and the doubt now as to whether or not she will be confirmed before Election Day.
Yeah, I mean, could you rule anything out in 2020? I mean, we're just seeing the most extraordinary series of events in this campaign. Look, Coney Barrett, the nomination and her confirmation can definitely occur in time, but it will be just in time. If things go according to the Republican plan, she might get a seat on the Supreme Court around about the 27th of October. And remember, the presidential election is on the 3rd of November, the very next week. And as we saw in 2000 in Bush v. Gore, the Supreme Court can have a very significant role to play in deciding the outcome of an election. Under the US system, somewhat bizarrely, individual states determine voting rights, who gets to vote, how votes are counted. But often the Supreme Court is then called on to determine whether those state laws are valid under the Constitution. As I say, we saw that in 2000 when the decision of the Supreme Court in relation to the election in Florida meant that we wound up with President George W. Bush and not President Al Gore.
But that depends on the fact that it would be a close result. And at the moment, there's a chance it might not be close if those polls are even, you know, partially accurate.
Absolutely. It's very, it's only stating the obvious, it's very difficult to predict right now what it's going to look like. What the Democrats will be very concerned about, however, is if individual states, maybe more than one, 2 or 3 states, have results that they can dispute through the judicial process.
That'll be delayed.
And you add all those up. It could delay announcing the results of the election, which brings its own challenges and problems. But equally, their concern would be a newly conservative-heavy Supreme Court could deliver an adverse result for them.
National Security Advisor at Bondi Partners with Joe Hockey. Mark Watson, thanks so much.
Thanks, Kieran.